Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Thoughtful Thursdays with Adon, the delivery man. I have another guest this time around, William, a.k.a. Billy Nwanda, our fearless leader.
Oh,
No?
lordy. Yeah, for everybody who listens to Nevycast, he really likes just being like, well, William really likes to do X, Y, and Z today.
That's your name.
This is true. Yeah, hey folks, this is your boy, Fearless Billy Nwanda, and I'm here for good times and weapons and all that nice little stiff.
And with us again is... Who? Who are you?
That hurts.
Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
But the host is supposed to... Fine, I'll fucking introduce myself. I'm Hans, if you haven't caught on now.
Right.
Star of famous TV shows like This Never Happened and Complete and Utter Bullshit.
That's right.
Moving on.
Also, the writer of Fiction Fridays, Flash Fiction. Right.
Indeed. They are my fault. Please direct all tomatoes my way.
That's right.
And also the Demon Lord who exquisitely lives in the Edo period.
Yes.
As you can tell by his latest playthroughs of Tokinen, which you can catch every Tuesday on the Nevi Devil group at YouTube.
Sweet.
Yeah, that was some good shilling, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Pimp that.
It's all us. All
It's
us.
all us.
All the time. For you, the viewer. Maybe we should actually get to the point of why we're doing this.
The point is, today we're continuing the theme from the previous episode, which was Parasite the Maxim, and we were talking about the story of growing up, also known as coming of age, the hero's journey, etc., etc. So now, today we're talking about My Hero Academia, and Hans brought up the idea of the mentor. And I really like that idea because in My Hero Academia, in my opinion, I would argue, that they're trying to make an interesting compromise because the main hero, what's his name again?
Deku.
Deku, thank you. I'm awful with names, just awful. Awful. He's a third generation, like if you're keeping track more or less of the heroes. He's third generation hero, and All Might would be like third generation.
No, more like
Or
second
maybe-
gen.
So, what I thought was very interesting was that he doesn't, the power, okay, spoilers, the power can be passed on from All Might, which is one for all.
One for all, yeah. Yeah, the way it's supposed to work is that one for all, unlike a lot of the other quirks, is a quirk that can be... It's all for one.
All for one.
All for one?
Isn't there a one
No,
for all
it
when
is
he
one
uses
for
it?
all. Because all for one is... Oh, jeez, I don't want to... Because a certain someone who is in this room has not gotten far enough in the story. But, yeah, like, All Might's deal is what's known as one for all. Which is a specialty quirk that can be spread out onto multiple peeps. And the thing about it is that with every person that it goes through, it becomes progressively stronger.
And when we find Deku in this show as finally realizing his dream of becoming a hero, even though he's quirkless, he runs into All Might, who tells him, "You're the chosen one." And so by this time, All Might hasn't found the appropriate possessor of this great power, which means that the previous generations somehow fucked up. Something happened that they weren't they didn't deserve this power, which again goes back to the idea of the mentor figure. there weren't any mentors that did a good enough job for this power to be passed on to. And so we find All Might running against time because he's almost going to lose his power, because in this story he claims that there was a big fight and he got really injured and he has to pass this power before it fades away or something like that happens. So I'm thinking that something happened where it had to be Deku, who is a high schooler, who was worthy enough of this power. And I think that's a criticism to previous generations, and I would say, like, with us as millennials, as Gen Xers maybe, that something happened where we didn't have a mentor figure. And I could go back into the Parasite the Maxim, where we see the parasite and the human, where they're kind of figuring shit out, like, together. There's not a mentor figure either. So I want to see what your thoughts are on that.
You want to take this one first, Hans?
Yeah, sure. The mentor role is filled aptly by All Might in this case, and before him, we don't know. We don't know where he got it from. Was it just a quirk, if you'll forgive the pun, of fate that gave him his all-for-one ability? Or did someone come along and saw him as worthy and said, yes, I'm going to pass this to you, because not only do I trust you to use it responsibly, I trust you to find someone else to pass it on to afterwards.
It's kind of funny, because, like, okay, I should probably explain that out of the three people that are on camera right now, I'm the one that's, like, actually pretty far ahead of the story at this point. So it's like, I kind of know already what the... And for a lot of you guys who are watching this too, you're going to know the answers to these questions that are being posed on a purely manga level. So for a lot of you guys, like, I know you're probably just going to be staring at this just being like, you know, bro! You know, but just humor us for a little bit, because, like, what we're kind of trying to do more or less is more of a actual psychological breakdown and more of a, like, breakdown of the situation. In this case, you know, what Adon is talking about when it comes to the mentor figure concept is that, you know, All Might ended up with this power. But it's kind of interesting that it took so long for him to find a successor, because, you know, you, like, again, you break it down to where in the immediate anime and manga, like, in the immediate anime timeline that a lot of people were watching this show with, there's three distinct generations of superheroes. You have the generation that was with All Might and with a lot of the teachers of the UA. You have the middle generation, which are a lot of the, like, the heroes that you kind of see roaming the streets and whatnot, like Giant Lady and a few of the others. And then you have the UA students, which are the third gen. And it's kind of interesting how, when you really look at it, you know, why did All Might have to wait until Deku in order to find a proper successor? Now, a lot of people could break down immediately and say, well, it's shonen tropes, bruh. You know, and, you know, that could be, you know, like, on the very, like, base level, you could say it's a giant shonen trope that, you know, well, Deku's the hero of our story. He can't just get by on Batman-like wits alone. You know, he's got to have the superpowers. But when you're really looking at it, again, you know, it's just like, what happened to this second generation of heroes that made it to where All Might felt he could not find somebody? And you really have to look at it in that the second generation of heroes kind of failed overall. You know, because if you notice a lot of the arcs of My Hero Academia, like, the biggest anime one so far is the USJ, like, the invasion arc. which happened at the end of season 1 of the anime. And, you know, it's kind of crazy that it basically took not only a lot of the students, the third generation kids, but that it still took All Might himself in order to drive away the threat, whereas a lot of the so-called second generation heroes, many of them buried within the teachers of USJ, got their butts handed to them in a major way. So, going from that, you can almost kind of draw a parallel, and you have to wonder if the mangaka was even intentionally, unintentionally drawing a parallel to society in general, and that, you know, we had a really great progressive generation, and then for the last, few decades, we've been under more of the thrall of a conservative generation that, by our accounts, being the youngest generation, being that of, Gen X and millennials, are pretty much in profound agreement that generation has failed us. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting kind of parallel, in that you're looking at something like All Might, who, again, you know, you have to wonder, I mean, he probably just couldn't find anybody out of that current crop. He had to wait till much later, and at a much more frantic and drastic time. You almost have to wonder that if he wasn't so panicked and he came upon Deku, and he had more prep time, would he even have chosen Deku at all? You know?
Exactly, because in the show, it's my opinion as well that he's frantic. It's like he sees Deku and it's like, oh, wow, okay, he looks like a hero. I'm running out of time. He ran towards this monster with no powers. He seems like a nice guy. I'll give it to him. What the hell? I'm running out of time.
I'd like to play devil's advocate for a moment and say that maybe the mentor wasn't entirely altruistic in this case. All Might, having that power, holding on to it, going back to the saying that power corrupts, maybe he didn't want to let it go. And that's why it took him so long to find a successor. And it was until that big fight and that injury that he's like, okay, I gotta do this or it'll do me in. Just a thought.
That is true. I mean, you can kind of see that creep up a little bit there, especially in the first couple of episodes where the very fact that Deku did charge in when All Might himself was hesitating because he didn't necessarily want to reveal himself and he didn't want to push in issues with his powers. Mm-hmm. You know, because he was really running low on time as it was.
I want to know, well, okay, so I think it's interesting how the show wants to point out, in my opinion, that All Might overall is more noble or nobler than other heroes, because you see number 2 is what's his name?
Flame guy.
Yeah, the flame guy. Emblem? No, not Emblem. That guy.
The parent of the Ice Flame guy. I don't remember his name either, but I only half watched the show.
Yeah, please don't kill us because we're all horrible with names.
Yeah.
No, I'm good with names. I just haven't been paying much attention to the show. I'm familiar with the basis of it because they talk about it incessantly, but as far as details, I haven't dug into it, so I can't provide much of my usual overly analytical expertise.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of those situations where we need our tech guy to chime in at this point. So while he's chiming in with some details for us, yeah, I mean, All Might does project, he is built like the classical, shonen hero. Actually, he's not even built like a shonen hero. He's built like an American comic book hero.
Yeah.
Which is why he displays much of a higher sense of justice and worth than a lot of your typical shonen protagonists. Because, hell, you look at, one of the most famous shonen protagonists, Goku, and Goku is pretty much a deadbeat dad.
Mm-hmm.
At his very core. A deadbeat dad who has no problem letting the world and everything go to hell just so he can have a good fight. Whereas All Might is built off of the American, concept of what a hero should be.
Yeah.
And I think that translate, that helps kind of differentiate My Hero Academia to begin with.
And I think it also plays around with the ideas of masculinity in subtle ways that I liked. For example, there's a couple of jabs within this story where Deku is crying too much, and All Might tells him, cut the waterworks, don't cry so much. Which is guiding him to be like appropriately masculine. It's not that he's crying, which is the problem. The problem is when he's crying, and you see the absence of the father again with Deku, and the mother really being the parental figure that brought him up. She raised him, and that would go back to this idea of the mentor figure, like where did the fathers go in the previous generations?
So the name you guys were looking for was Endeavor.
Endeavor. Okay, Endeavor is the flame guy who's the number 2, who is the dick of the story.
Yeah, he is all sorts of deplorable.
Yeah. Again, spoilers.
I'm sure he gets his hackneyed redemption.
That's right.
But yeah, like to kind of seize upon this a little bit is that you can kind of sense that there is a strong like especially in the beginning arcs of My Hero Academia in the first few episodes, you can sense that there is a strong like female imprinting upon Deku in his personality, and it also gives him a kindness and also a warmth and a strength that you wouldn't see in a lot of other heroes. Now, I'm sure with like the lack of a father figure, there's usually like, storyline reasons for that happening. And, so I'm sure there is probably a good explanation as to why the father is not present. But it does lead to a pretty good question of, how differently would Deku have developed if both the father and mother were equally present in raising him for the most part.
Well, there's also Endeavor's child, which I forgot his name. Oh, didn't know it to begin with. But the half ice, half fire person, and his mother actively spurned him, cursed him, because of what her father did. She hated the child, hated her situation, so...
Todoroki. Shoto Todoroki.
Todoroki. Okay. But she even went so far as to scar him, both, emotionally and physically, because of what he was. So we have the positive influence, and then what that... not only the negative influence of, someone who you're supposed to look up to, but them betraying you. And that's actually what I was mentioning during Parasite, where I was conjecturing about the malicious mentor. Because you expect someone to guide you, you expect someone to, care for you insofar as they are required to by whatever you believe, but they don't. They actively go out of their way to harm you. And he was kind of an interesting case study as, again, I'm using the term foil to Deku.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely go that route, because, they're kind of, especially in the current, sports festival arc, they're being built as a direct parallel to each other. And that you see kind of the radical differences between Deku's upbringing and Todoroki's upbringing. The other interesting thing is that if you kind of notice how Todoroki hasn't, as far as I know, because, I am kind of severely behind on the anime, but he's still been using his ice powers, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm. He refuses to use his flame powers because he hates his father.
And because he still has that connection with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
So, even you could even say, even though the mother wasn't, necessarily there for him in many ways, so to speak, the fact that there's still that feminine imprinting and connection is kind of an interesting deal. Even dealing with, the mentor concepts, where you have the very positive mentor in All Might, and you have the very, dickish mentor in Endeavor.
And even then, as you were saying, the feminine imprinting that Deku got from his mother, which he was raised by, I'm sure she taught him a thing or three about not just, the task at hand of being a hero, but making his way through life.
Yeah. It does lead to a lot of wet works at first, in the first couple or so episodes, but after you get past that, and especially the more that Deku starts to grow and mature, the more that feminine imprinting becomes a source of, I would say, almost wildness out of him. It leads to, between that and a lot of the smarts that he's learned about heroes in general, and especially the fact that he's gained an analytical nature, which I don't really think he would have necessarily taken fully on without, again, that, mother's guidance. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't make him the hero that he is at this point.
And I think that the female imprint is being compensated enough by All Might's presence, because you don't see All Might too much, with Deku in mentoring and telling him what to do exactly. But he does tell him enough, things like, I believe in you, I chose you for a reason, you're strong enough, you're smart enough, and that's enough to keep him going. Together with the what he already knows, based from previous education from his mother.
Yeah. It also heavily factors in, it still continues to gain him that strength, because you definitely sense that a lot of what he's going through is still his growing pains. So it's not going to be set up to be one of those deals where he's just going to come out on top all the time from this point on. So
that wouldn't be very interesting.
Indeed.
And that is what growing up is all about, right? You don't win. You're not. If you win all the time, then you learn very little.
Yep. Case in point, Goku.
Better informative loss than a victory.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We keep drawing these, kind of parallels with Dragon Ball Z, and again, the subversion of tropes that My Hero Academia does. And that, it's encouraging a hero that is much more of a tactician, as well as having, the superpowers, but also knowing his limits, knowing what he can and cannot do, and also being aware of everyone around him and, the environment around him, all that nice little stuff. It's kind of a fresh take on the shonen in general, because most of the time, when you look at Shonen Jump stuff, it's usually well, how many walls and planets can I smack you through this time? So...
And I think that for a generation that used TV, internet, movies, cartoons to grow up, this is a good thing to look at, if anything, because I would say that for the generation that fucked up, the generation that was left to grow up on its own had to use other resources. Like millennials and Gen Xers had to use TV and internet and cartoons to grow up, because there wasn't a mentor figure, there wasn't a father or a mother figure to really teach them what to do or how to act, how to behave, how to be like a human being. And so if you're looking at this cartoon, it's a this anime, it's a good way to look at learning and about life in general and in a healthy way. Because a scene that I liked a lot was in the race, where he grabs the piece of metal and he jumps into landmines, and he manages to be the first one. and he doesn't say, "Ah, it was me." You know, it's all me. It's all my smarts. You know, I'm a badass. He's like, well, I was kind of lucky, and it just turned out that I made it. But it's not all myself.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like one of the actually a genre that is starting to become popular in Japan, especially in light novels and anime, is this whole concept of the abandoned generation. You know, like you have a lot of protagonists that are starting to come up nowadays that they all start off with the same deal. They're all pretty much neats that live at home and just don't do anything because that's all they know what to do. And of course, you know, there's usually the trope of they get flown off into some magical world and then, you know, hilarity, or in the case of, you know, RE0, Dark Souls ensues. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting deal on that.
No game, no life.
No Game, No Life, yeah, it's another really good one.
Welcome to the NHK, where none of that happens, and he just gets shown the truth of being a NEET. It's not pleasant.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of interesting how, like, you've had all these anime titles that have come out that kind of are displaying and kind of showing to people that are watching them is like, look, you know, look at what's happened to this set of kids, you know, that have grown up, you know, without, you know, really proper guidance or proper, you know, mentors, like whether they be parents or like, you know, teachers or anything like that. And, you know, look and see, like, this is what's happened to them. And then, you know, you draw that up against something like My Hero Academia, where it's like, at least you can see the positivity and the hope that there are folks that can jump in there and actually do something about it. You know, you could even take a further parallel, you know, especially with, like, geek culture, nerd culture, and all that stuff, and that you at least have a lot of folks with, you know, the convention scene that are trying to actively educate people, as well as, you know, let them go to rave parties and, like, you know, that kind of stuff. So,
I think a good example of what happens when things go wrong is Cable Guy, with Jim Carrey.
yeah.
Like, that is the perfect example.
And we're not just talking about that cover song of, you know, don't you want somebody to love?
Right.
You know, by that Jim Carrey does.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have that burned into my brain forever.
That's right.
And
Good.
now we're all thinking about it.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
That's good.
Back on
Yes.
topic.
Good
Yeah.
movie.
I got a way to get that out of your head.
No.
It's the Inspector Gadget theme.
I've heard it.
It's the anti-earworm.
Okay, that's right.
Yes.
Oh.
Engineer Jason, once again with quips.
So those are my thoughts on My Hero Academia. Continuing with the theme of the mentor figure and a lost generation. What happens when the previous generation fucks up and they're completely absent, and what happens to the next generation, and where things can go very right with Deku, and where things can go very wrong with maybe
Todoroki. Yeah. And once again, like, just kind of keep in mind that this is based off of, like, current knowledge that is in the story that's been presented in the anime thus far. Like, I'm quite a bit ahead of everybody, but again, I can't, like, we have to judge based off the content that we have now. So, I know for a lot of you guys who are going to be watching this up on YouTube, or who are going to be seeing this, like, where we share this on the Facebook page, a lot of y'all are probably all going to, once again, you're going to be screaming like, oh my god, just, like, catch up with the story, bro. But, you know, again, we're just presenting, like, another point of view. So just kind of keep that in mind as, like, you're, like, going through this.
And maybe think about other shows with this type of analysis. Maybe start looking at the shows in a more analytical view, and start establishing parallels between what you're watching and maybe what you're experiencing. I mean, that's the point of what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch a lot of shows on a base level, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's easier just to, like, I mean, not easier, but it's a lot harder to do so, but, like, if you peel back a lot of the layers that are behind a lot of your favorite anime, like, you can catch some really deep stuff. A lot of it intentional, and then some of it completely unintentional that the creators didn't plan to put in at all whatsoever.
Freudian slips and all that.
Yeah. Really good point, Evangelion.
Or I was going to say false positives.
False positives. There you go.
Because the thing is, if something strikes you on a certain level, it may not strike another person on a certain level, and then you can have discourse about that and come to an understanding about it. And boom, your fear of talking to people, gone, because you have something to say and it's important.
Exactly. So I hope this is useful to anyone who's watching or listening or both. And how much time do we have left?
I think means we're done.
You can kind of tell that we're still kind of new at this. It's just like I think I've expounded everything. But, I think at this point, we're looking at, like, it's, we can pretty much, like, this is pretty much, like, coming to an end for the most part. Even though I just repeated myself multiple times while doing this.
Yeah. But we're doing this for fun. This is fun. This is for you guys. This is for us.
Yeah.
This is for everybody.
Yeah, this is the first time that you're seeing it.
This is for the future!
Right.
For justice.
Yeah.
And justice! Oh, wait, other arm.
But and of course this is like the second time people have seen us on camera.
Yeah.
Other than our Nevi quest. Yeah, so, good times.
They see me all the time when Rome plays them.
Yeah, they do with that. It's kind of funny because, like, they see your mug all the time and then they.
And I'm the one
us.
out on camera right now.
Yeah, you're the one off camera right now because you're our fact checking, tech guy.
Yeah, I'm the tech guy.
I like that.
So quick, before we sign off, let's do a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil for the camera.
Okay.
Who's going to be what?
I'll be hear no evil.
Okay, I'll be see no evil.
Joke's on you.
But anywho, folks, I'm just gonna completely break that right now. Guys, as always, likes, comments, subscribes would be super appreciated. And keep in mind that we post stuff every single day up on our WordPress at the nevidoublegroup.wordpress.com. If you are up over by the YouTubes, you can check us out on YouTubes. We always post all of our podcast content up there. We also do Let's Plays. We do board game playthroughs, all sorts of nice little stuff like every day of the week. Every single day there's always new content and stuff to check out from us.
Yeah, just look for the Nevi Debla, and it's the bloody jackalope.
Yes, the bloody jackalope. But anywho, guys,
It looks like ketchup.
Yeah. So, this is on behalf of Demon Lord Hans and our delivery man, Adon.
Hey.
This is your boy, Fearless Billy Nwanda, signing off. So, good night and good luck.
Hope you enjoyed it.